As tonight is a sacred event of sorts, if you can please turn your telephones on sacred mode. Hands that hold work, for Naomi. I still remember the first poem, red brocade, words lighting alleyways in my mind through my heart, my feet longing to dance out story. Like ancient ones whispering to me, there were times, yes, when moving slowly mattered, space, getting to know a friend, long stroke gestures. It enlightened me in the way a great meal might, the intention to offer gift, feed a journeyer, or even the hungry who have never tasted caring. It can melt walls. We are human together, I remember. Generously offered hands that hold work, a blessing as fuel when so much hurt engulfs the land. Guiding roots down with open palms, medicine is given through her hands to a world who, like a child, so often refuses. When broken, feel the break, she says. Fill the crack with tea, cookies, things that nourish. We have nothing to lose and so much to remember. That was obviously for Naomi. Words matter. Words matter. Poetry matters, right? In a time when words and facts are being abused, it is important to have that balance of the art, beauty, truth that poetry is often attempting at. I mean, how many of you have ever felt despair or longing for something authentic? And you've turned to the words of one of tonight's guests, Naomi Shihab Nye or Kim Stafford. How many of you have? Turn to them. Yeah, right? And why do we do this? We do this because in a world of what I'm going to call fake attention, our souls need to be reminded of humanity, like real attention, of kindness, of love. So we come together tonight for a bit of that medicine for our souls. Not to put too much pressure on you two, but I think you can handle it. I think you're up for the task. Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Rohr, founder and director of the Stafford Challenge and host of tonight's event. Thank you. The Stafford Challenge, for those who don't know, is an international poetry project which began 3 years ago, where participants sign up and commit to writing a poem a day for a year, inspired by the daily writing practice of the late great poet William Stafford. We're now in the third year with over 1,450 participants in this year's cohort from all around the country and all around the world. And from the very beginning, when it was just a seed of an idea that I hadn't even put out in the world yet, Kim and Naomi were there as generous supporters, encouraging me in all the ways. Thank you so much for that. And since that time, having had the great opportunity to get to know them both, be in correspondence with them, I dreamed about getting them together on stage for a reading and conversation here in Portland, Oregon. I was longing for it. I wanted to eavesdrop on whatever conversation that they were going to have. And tonight, we finally have that opportunity. So delicious. So before I introduce them, I want to thank Lewis and Clark College and Adam Davis and Oregon Humanities for their support in making this happen. I also want to thank Literary Arts and all of the other local arts organizations that helped promote tonight's event. Is there some noise going on? Some like rock and roll? I guess we're going into a rock and roll party. I also want to thank Jesse and Christiana, who are, did I say your name right? Okay, so thank you. Jesse and Christiana, who are American Sign Language interpreters for the evening. Yeah. So the flow of the evening is going to look like this. I'm going to introduce Kim, who's going to do a reading. And then he's going to introduce Naomi, who will then do a reading. And then we're going to move this podium here, and they're going to have a conversation. And to Kim, I am honestly forever grateful for your encouragement and support, for saying yes, offering your blessing for the Stafford Challenge, for the project. I'm guessing everyone in the room here knows Kim. But this is what he wanted me to share of his bio. His bio could be like this long, but this is what he wanted me to share. Kim Stafford writes, teaches, and travels to restore the human spirit. He has published some 20 books, including As the Sky Begins to Change from Red Hen Press in 2024, and has taught writing in Scotland, Italy, Mexico, and Bhutan. In 2018, he was named Oregon Poet Laureate for a 2-year term. And I would like to welcome Kim Stafford. Thank you so much.
Naomi, I think this is what they call a warm audience. My greatest compliment ever. It was the 60s in Barcelona at the train station. I was a scruffy vagabond talking with an old lady, babbling in my instinctive high school Spanish as I lifted her bag onto a cart, and she asked me to help find her son. A tall man, she said, with a felt hat, who would be smoking a cigarette, distracted, checking his watch. And we laughed over the frenzy of travelers swirling around us. And then she said to me, "Señor, ¿es usted extranjero? Are you a foreigner?" She knew the obvious. American kid, AWOL, from home with a rucksack and sturdy boots. But she chose to smile for the sweetest of moments with a kindness I have cherished for 50 years, as if she had taken me for her countryman, un paisano, un joven de su país. Do you feel the magnitude of that compliment? We are of the same country. Well, I want to thank Brian for bringing us together. I've watched him from a distance and close up pull this miracle off. I want to thank the poets for keeping our language ever more alive. I want to thank Lewis and Clark for hosting the gathering we've had. I want to thank Naomi for traveling all these miles of witness to bring us her bright spirit and honest words. I want to thank Broadway Books downstairs for making poetry available. I want to thank the signers tonight for their help and their grace. Poems for a cause. What's your calling? What's your cause? If it's justice, then pen a few just words into a chant or song that can call us all upright to witness and to testify. If you believe education is the key, then compose a winsome proclamation for a child to recite, standing small but tall in the halls of power. If it's earth that tugs your heart, or immigrant children who haunt your dreams, or people by bad luck cast out to camp under the overpass, then find a way to sing your sorrows into remedy, your hurt into help, syllables to gather others, so words can guide our work, and your pain can be our refrain for change. So I was giving a reading in beloved Broadway Books, who are downstairs with mountains of books that if you don't buy them, they'll have to ship them back. And we don't want that to happen. And Broadway Books, I was part of a program there recently, and this feeling came to me that I've often felt, but I stopped to savor it, of being in a bookstore. You know, it's a place of safety, of buoyancy. And I thought of the phrase forest bathing. You know, this new age thing. You go out into the forest and you're cleansed by being there. And so I thought, what about book bathing? Because it's partly that you're surrounded by books, but it's also the people in a bookstore are your people. So this is this poem's for a cause. I want to read poems for places, ideas, people. So this is book bathing for Broadway Books. Some say, step into the forest to let green air scrub your mind of sorrow. Birdsong rinse regret from your heart, where trees teach upright dignity, and moss offers soft touch to your hurt hands. You will come forth clean and kind, growing again in joy. Then step through the door of a little bookstore to feel the rub of stories whisper your hair, words waiting in their waterfall to clear your fear, to let you feel the soft friction of thought, nourish your dreams, while all around you, book people gift you kinship with friendly eyes. The dog's wagging his tail. This is going well. Okay, this one is for the signers. Because last night we had a reading at the college, and someone stood up, and this is how readings often begin, said, "Can you hear me?" And then I looked at the signers. How do you sign, "Can you hear me"? So I thought, I'm going to write a poem for the signers. So this is called "Can You Hear Me?" Can you hear me? The poet says. We look to the signer signing this. Can you hear me? And there begins the grace duet of the poet's breath and the signer's hands. The poet's chant begins, and with wings, the signer begins to fly. Bright face showing hints of happiness, even as the poem darkens. Then our dancing prophet becomes a winter tree, silhouette swaying in the wind, deep roots speaking in limb and twig by hesitation, flurry, opening fist, staccato fingers spelling out a name. We watch a text for healing sweep across a body and be in us then. How can one country hear another? How can a soldier on one side hear a child on the other? Can a gun hear a cry? Can a missile hear the dust its target will become? O signer, guide us in this matter. May we all become signers, saying with our bodies, our gestures, our actions, what words have failed to convey. Here, in this room, by your genius in gesture, hands make rain, make night, make door, candle, smoke, and the song grows visible. Then the poem ends as one hand falls from the other, and we are all as one. We like that. Okay, this one is for a whole bunch of people because I was writing in the morning and out of the air came these names. You'll recognize these names. It's called So Still. They took Eric for a cigarette. They took George for a $20 bill. Brianna is gone 'cause they didn't like her door. Who will be the next to lie so still? They took Ahmed for running. They took Laquan because he walked away. They took Trayvon 'cause he was looking round. Wrong time, wrong place is all they say. They took Emmett for a whistle. They took Medgar for a word. They took Martin 'cause they didn't like his dream. Again they said it's time that dream's deferred. So still, so still. Did they kill you for a thrill? So still in your casket, so silent and so chill. They took away your laughter, let us keep our tears. They took you in your troubles, in your tender years. They took you for your color, that's how it appears. And when will we decide true justice to fulfill before we make another lie so still? Okay. And this one's for Naomi. Because she came out to Fish Trap, and I think it wasn't until she had departed that I realized, what just happened? You know, how come we're so happy? You know, what was it? And so this is called Our Singer Come From Afar. You know, in this country, when you're giving a poetry reading, someone gets up and makes a list of how famous you are. But in Hawaii, you are dressed in flowers when you enter the room, and then you're given food. And someone is making music, and then one of the aunties gets up and says, we want to thank our visitor for leaving her family and traveling the world to come to us and bring us stories to heal us and strengthen us. Our singer come from afar. Be our wren or warbler, lit in willow swaying with your tender weight of songs, sipping the sky to tell us hard things from far away. You freighted here for our understanding and comfort. Sing the mysterious harmony of news and blessing, hurt and healing, offered with head high, eye bright, until with a friendly shrug, you flit away and leave us strangely younger. That's what's about to happen to you. Okay. 3 more little poems. So one thing we talked about in the workshop is the idea of taking a cliche and giving it honor. Giving it honor. They're just these phrases that we just roll our eyes. And yet, they're seeds for discovery. So in this case, I had written in my little notebook, "This conversation may be recorded for quality assurance." And I thought, that poor phrase has been waiting so long to be honored. So this conversation may be recorded for quality assurance. I'm glad somebody cares. When I call customer service to ask about my last billing cycle, and someone in India with a lovely accent, a voice brought by satellite to sort my payments says, "How can I help you?" And as we delve into enigma beyond our words, sometime later, far away, someone else prepares to listen. Perhaps it's a mother in North Carolina trying to make ends meet. Or maybe it's an immigrant in Chicago moonlighting to send money home. Think of it. We send our voices to mingle out there beyond the great emptiness, speaking our oldest human contract. Can I help? And then, alert to silence, someone attends to syllables that may assure the quality of our essential bond. So next time you hear that, this is a little bit like Thich Nhat Hanh's advice for the telephone. And I can't remember it exactly, but it's something like, with the first ring, remember you're a human being. With the second ring, take a beautiful breath. With the third ring, be grateful that someone is reaching out to you. And after the fourth ring, pick up the telephone and say, hello. It's so simple to be happy. Okay, so some years ago, a friend of Sister Barb, a painter, got this crazy idea. I'm going to get couples who have been married for a long time to come and physically make a tableau in my studio. I'll have some props, and I'll get them, and then I'll paint their portrait, double portrait. And so, as I remember, for some reason, I picked up a hammer. I don't know, were there flower? What? Anyway, we got in this configuration, and then she painted us. And she decided to call the show, she had an exhibit then of many of these paintings, Rich Land Between. Between the partners, there's this landscape of memory and discovery and all kinds of things. So this is called Rich Land Between for Perrin. In a forest wilderness many years ago, you appeared to me, and I appeared to you, two birds in separate trees singing to the sky. We looked down to find the ground between us illuminated by a story we wanted to live. I could see it with your eyes, and you could see it with mine. Since then, we have explored the land between, every crumb of earth, every stem golden by day, withering by season, sprouting again and again, until it's hard to tell where your song ends and mine begins. The land between, crisscrossed by our devotions, has revealed how in our life the gifts are many and the price is everything. Okay. One more poem, and then I'm ending exactly on time to get Naomi up here. Okay, this is the news. It assaults us. It wounds us. It abrades us. And sometimes you just have to go do something beautiful. Not in denial, but to strengthen yourself to face what you are called to do, your cause. So this one day, several years ago, we went to pick blueberries. All we could do was go pick blueberries. And one thing I love about picking blueberries, there are all these cultures, Russians, Germans, Mexicans, all with their children in a fabulous mood. I mean, that's restorative, right? So this is called easy pickings, because I realized, when I was younger, I would be a good citizen and bend down and pick the bush clean. But now it's more like the berries on top is where it's at. They're bigger, they're sweeter, they're easier to pick. So easy pickings. It's easy to laugh in the blueberry field, staccato plink and plunk as berries plummet into the pail. And you hear children banter in a dozen languages among the green rows. It's easy to forgive there, too, viewing old betrayals sweetly diminished by the honeyed crush of berries on your tongue. It's even possible to imagine peace between people who hated each other before their children met between these rows and asked one another, "Shall we pick together? Come pick with me, my enemy, my angry self. Come, split couple bickering over money. Come to the blueberry field, Palestine and Israel. Come bow and squint under the sun-splashed leaves. Come peer into these dark shadows for blue." So, we're going to scare the dog. Let's not scare the dog. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Naomi Shihab Nye. And I have so many questions I want to ask her. But I just want to tell one story about how our families got connected. As I remember the story, you can correct me if I'm wrong. So our dad was a poetry consultant to the Library of Congress. Now it's called the Poet Laureate position. So back in 71, and he met all kinds of people. He met, for example, if you know Robert Frost's poem, Death of the Hired Man, the hired man didn't die. He's a poet in Florida, and he came to visit our dad at the Library of Congress. So all these people would show up. And so then years later, someone had an idea, let's get a reunion of the old poet laureates, or poets laureate, anyway. So Richard Eberhart was there, Stanley Kunitz, fairly grumpy people in some cases. But someone in the Library of Congress office had this great idea, and I think many organizations should have this idea. Let's have each of the old poet laureates select a young poet to come and be part of the gathering. Now, our father, he was on the road probably half the year. He went everywhere. He'd do 30 readings in 30 days, just town to town. So he knew thousands of young poets. I give you the one he chose.
What a reading, Kim. That was gorgeous. Thank you. Welcome, Portland, and people from all around, poets, writers from everywhere. It's always been so great to be in Oregon, and thank you for inviting me back. Thank you, Brian, for the Stafford Challenge and all the participants who are here. So many new friends, so many old friends. It's felt as if we were companioned by deep time the last few days. Remembering so many layers of history and meeting new people and feeling as if they were old friends. And it's been so beautiful. So thank you all for coming out tonight. Oregon has always shown up. I would like to say that about Oregon. I always have a feeling when you come here to do anything, beautiful people will appear. They just will. Okay, 1 second, sorry. Kim is very neat when he presents. I am not so neat, but I try to pick out the poems in advance, but I never have them on little pieces of paper like you do. So I'm going to read the same amount of time, and then we'll have a conversation. So Brian, I thought I should read a few from the Stafford Challenge writings, just from the last few days. So these are very recent poems. No one's ever heard them, barely typed them. To Pain. Sometimes we know where you come from. Then you are easier to bear. Other times you sneak up and in from no one knows where, and everything tilts. All the hopes we had in our pocket slip through a hole. I'm standing under a string of balloons blown up by someone else. I'm walking a dog who isn't mine, trying to live in the margin of our own day can feel helpful. How quiet could I be? These are not my plans. They are someone else's. They are pains. I'm pretending this is a spa, and I paid to be here. Eating a bowl of healthy vegetables, stretching my shoulders, breathing. Maybe pain needs to be honored sometimes. Maybe it's a bell. Brian, I've found that the Stafford Challenge encourages us to write all kinds of things we probably would not have written otherwise. Intention. Morning light will be my will. Cheer my footpath. Loosening tight knot. Remembering only next step after it happens. And just one more from the last few days. Miriam, that was my mother, she loved Portland also. At the equine therapy farm, we were asked, who is afraid of horses? And you and I both raised our hands. This surprised me. You knew I had been whipped from a saddle at 16, Brackenridge Park. That fellow knew exactly how to sweep a rider off by ducking under a certain drooping tree. But I had no idea you were afraid of all large animals, including cows. Who is afraid of a cow? The therapist invited us to stand in the center of a ring of brown horses. No one had a leash on. She spoke to them softly. A tattooed guy quivered next to me. You huddled close to a blonde braided girl. The horses were invited to circle us, sniff us, nuzzle us. We could touch their manes and glossy backs. All morning, we engaged with horses in different ways and left as different people. Outside, the Texas summer blazed its bluest blue. We were silent as we drove away, stunned by tenderness. No longer would my first equine thought be of Superman forever losing his ability to walk. When you lay dying, hands outstretched at your sides, I hoped you felt a softness from somewhere, a warm, moist nose. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. And since Father's Day is tomorrow, I would like to read a poem to the father of 3 people in the room, but also this week, kind of the father of everyone. Woven by air, texture of air, your job is to find out what the world is trying to be. William Stafford. Some birds hide in leaves so effectively, you don't see they're all around you. Brown tilted heads observing human maneuvers on a sidewalk. Was that a crumb someone threw? Picking, poking, no fanfare for company. Gray huddle, on a branch, blending in, attention deeper than a whole day. Who says, I'll be a thoughtful bird when I grow up? Stay humble, blend, belong to all directions. Fly low, love a shadow, and sing freely. Never let anything get in the way of your singing. Not darkness, not winter, not the cries of flashier birds, not the silence that finds you steadfast, pen ready at the edge of 4 a.m. Your day is so wide, it will outlive everyone. It has no roof, no sides. Thank you. Thank you so much. And then I wanted to read one for my father as well, Aziz. And my father also loved the Stafford family, Aziz. He was born in Old Jerusalem in 1927. He had many Jewish friends as a child, Greek friends, Armenian friends. No one cared who was from where. They traded desserts. They played together. And the tragedies of his beloved country hurt him all his life. You exist, you do not exist. What a ridiculous state of affairs. His best friend was killed sitting on a bench beside him. He carried that bench his entire life. A gentle-looking woman blew a kiss to him from a bridge. He worried about her future. You were always here, but you are not here. Hard to explain the predicament of the Palestinian, but he tried so hard to do so. He connected his story. Native Americans, they knew. He told the tale anywhere it was invited. Respecting all people felt obvious. His friends extended to the horizon. He had friends he didn't know he had. Never have I been glad he is no longer here till now, when the poor, thin millions of Gaza, whom he loved so much, stagger through dust with battered cookpots, desperate for gruel. What would this have done to him? How would he have retained his smile? I heard a bird tweet the way my father used to chirp, stepping into a room with hope for the day. He did a little dance with one hand and both feet before sitting at the table. He waited for his tea to steep, and he waited to feel better, and he waited for the world to grow sane. He is gone now, but omnipresent. Thank you for knowing his song. This is spring's secret message, lasting longer than spring. This is the mountain laurel, the purple staggering scent at dawn. That's for the Texans in the audience. You know what that smells like. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And to companion Kim's beautiful book bathing poem, this is At the Book Festival. No bombs were thrown for varying opinions. No grenades cast onto words. We felt sane for a day, mingling as of old with people we did or did not know, listening in unison, greeting and hugging, finding another room, tent, Italian cream cake after lunch for energy, buying a book for its title alone, not feeling stuck or lost on the brink of collapse, or scared of anyone else, or worried. Not a bit. Sitting next to people we did not know, everyone smiled. At the book festival, we were wildly wealthy, truly democratic. Thank you. Thank you so much. A couple of years ago, I was asked to fill out this form at the doctor's office, and I really didn't like it. And I asked my husband later what he did about it when he was asked to fill out that form, and he said, "Oh, I put a big X over the whole paper and handed it back to them." Medicare wellness test. Can you tie your shoe, sing a lullaby, draw the face of a clock? How many times did you miss being younger this week? How many young people listened when you spoke? Is there anyone young who still loves you? Do you have sad thoughts? Do you need help making a meal? Do you walk around your neighborhood thinking of everyone that is gone? Are you unconditionally opposed to building a third stadium? Do you miss the Institute of Texan Cultures with a fervor that is almost strange? Do you have trouble remembering your name, your mother's name, your second grade teacher, your shoe size? Do your neighbors humor you? Have you always had a fervent desire to leave things on people's doorsteps? What is that connected to? Do you need to be liked? Do you miss parking meters? What do you do in your spare time? Is time your friend? Did you draw that clock yet? Did you give it 2 hands? Did you have a desire to make them look like your own? So, thanks. Thank you. So, thank you so much. It's really sweet to read to you and be with you. Okay, that's last. Okay. And I'm just going to read 2 more here, and then we'll have our conversation. Let's see. Where is it? See, Kim, you're so neat. You have to teach me how to be neater. Wait. Yeah, it's not even here. Oh, it must be on the table. Okay, 1 second. Yeah, it is. Okay. This past Wednesday, our son would have turned 40. He loved Portland also. He loved Oregon. He loved the Staffords. He was with us here many times. So this is called Distance. Our son used to say, "She has her poetry face on." Or maybe it was gaze. There she goes, her poetry gaze. Usually when playing a game, basketball, Scrabble, or hiking, he'd say, "Mom's gone. She's in poetry land. Let's skip her turn." The days melt, moments burn away, a few cling hard. I hope he knows, wherever he is, that now, when I gaze into the distance, all I see is him. Yeah, and really, these are, Brian, these are poems, I think somehow when you're doing the Stafford Challenge, well, this is just my morning poem. You allow yourself to write things that you might not allow in some other way. And I think that's one of the gifts of having a practice of making. I have written a lot about war and conflict and Gaza, Israel, Palestine over the past few years, but I'm not going to read them to you tonight because they're sad poems. Some of them will be in my next book, Sidekick, but some of them try to imagine a way out of these horrible circumstances we find ourselves in the world. And I've written some about things going on in this country too, but I just keep, looking into the distance, to the future, to a better day, to all the great people who are still everywhere, in every one of our states, doing beautiful things. So you can't live a day without hearing about great projects. When we were signing books, we heard about the street medicine project here, and like every single day you hear about all these wonderful things people are doing. And we do need to focus more on those, I think, to keep our sanity and our spirits up, and also keep trying to think of ways we could reach across anything that feels or looks like a divide. And poetry has always been so good about doing this, and the Stafford family in particular has been great about doing this, and find a connective link. So, people keep saying to me, "You must be really sad now because the Spurs lost." And I think, I kind of feel like that's a relief compared to everything else. No, the Spurs didn't lose. They won our love. We love them so much again. And they're like heroes in our city. And you know what they were doing the day after they lost the finals? They were all in children's hospitals, visiting the children. That's what they were doing, talking to the children, taking them presents. I mean, we didn't lose. We loved them. So this is called Finals. I don't want to talk about what happened last. They lost. He died. Let's talk about the whole games, the season. How funny he was when young. How he could solve any computer problem. How Wemby moves his graceful arms like a ballerina. That's it. Thank you. Yeah. I would like to invite Kim Stafford back to the stage. Thanks for your poems, Kim. They were amazing. They were
Naomi.
Perfect as always.
I hope everybody's ready for an all-nighter. We're just going to keep going here.
Yeah.
So, if you could do me a big favor, could you talk about your fourth grade teacher? Those blackboards, second grade teacher, those blackboards?
My second grade teacher, and this year we have had visits from two people who were in that second grade class, who, when I would have first talked about her to you, I hadn't seen those people in 50 plus years, however many years. So I've had a chance this past year to reminisce about Mrs. Harriet B. Lane of Central School, Ferguson, Missouri. And she was a true believer in poetry being at the center of the universe. And she said to us, first week of second grade, we will be reading poems, we will be memorizing poems, you will be reciting poems, you will be writing your own poems. Some people at this point were whispering, "What's a poem? What is she talking about?" You will learn to stand up in front of a group and recite your own poem from memory without mumbling. And I remember thinking, what's mumbling? So we were like suddenly drenched in this total love of poetry experience. We all remember how she took all the vocabulary words of the year, you know how you have spelling tests when you're in second grade, from the poems that we read. They all came from William Blake, Emily Dickinson, Carl Sandburg. Those were the spelling words. So they were a little harder than the other second grade class, what they were getting. And we were proud. She made us proud as poets because she believed in our voices. And she never said, oh, that poem's too hard for you, this is above you, you should bring something simpler. No.
So have I made this part up, that she was the oldest teacher in the oldest school?
Yeah, she was the
Missouri?
oldest teacher in the oldest school in the entire city of St. Louis.
Blackboards on all 4 walls?
Yeah, no, you didn't make it up. We had blackboards around the whole room, and there were places marked off with our names at the bottoms of them. That's the place we would write our poems. So we were surrounded by one another's poems. We did this every week of the year. So that's a lot of poems.
And did I make this up, that you thought it was easier to write your own poem than copy someone else's long poem?
Right. Well, and to go find a poem that was short enough that you wanted to put in your space, that could be more challenging than writing your own brief poem in your space. So we made up our own poems. And then on Friday, before the boards were erased only on Friday afternoons, we were asked to copy down our favorite poem from the board that we hadn't written. It could be by Dougie over there. Dougie came to visit me this year. Or it could be by Rabindranath Tagore. And we all have still the books that we made containing those poems. And the thing about the books that's amazing is it'll say, Claire, Emily Dickinson, Patty, Langston Hughes. You know, on every page there's like somebody from the class and then a famous poet. And she just made no distinctions, like these are the important poems, these are the unimportant poems. She just loved poems.
Well, Naomi, I'm really glad now that I've invited people from the Oregon Department of Education, because I think this is something we need to institute in all schools in Oregon.
And yeah. And one thing I would like to say about this is that all of us have lived creative lives. You know, we didn't all become poets, but, you know, here's a painter, here's somebody who designed, here's a songwriter, here's someone who designed cars from Ford Motor Company. No, everybody kind of went into a making field. Yeah. And one thing I remember her saying to my parents when they told her, well, this has been just a great year for Naomi because she already was obsessed with poems, she said, and it cost us nothing. And she smiled. I was able to see her again when she was 99, and I gave my first, I was still in college, and I gave my first poetry reading. I think it was because I belonged to the English Honor Society. We all went to St. Louis up from Texas, and I was able to say, you know, the person who really gave me a boost as a 7-year-old is here tonight. And her comment was, as she left, I would just like to ask you so many more questions. But that's how she was. You know, and the thing that I feel guilty about Kim is we never asked her to share any of her poems with us.
Yeah, where did she get these wild ideas about the saturation curriculum?
I think she made it up. No one else did it. Yeah.
So Naomi had a couple great questions for the Stafford Challenge. One was, she said, you know, poetry gets used sometimes in hospitals, in arts projects, public art, and so on. And have you ever heard someone who said, we tried poetry and it didn't work? And then her corollary question was, have you ever talked to someone who said, you know, I write poetry every morning and it does nothing for me? So I want to ask you, Naomi, what would you say to, I was going to say a non-believer. I mean, someone who has the opposite upbringing, who's never encountered poetry, never experienced the benefit of poetry.
Right.
What kind of poetry or experience or next step might you invite them to consider?
Well, recently I have been, or all these years, 50 plus years, been in many venues where, poetry is not people's main interest, but they want you to interest them in something. And so I say, I think it would help us all in our lives, in our fields, if we just became better observers and we became more attentive. And I feel as if I really started thinking about this one year when Elizabeth Woody came to Flight of the Mind, thanks to Judith Barrington and Ruth Gundel for that great project. Yeah. And Elizabeth told people, just write down 3 lines a day. Just 3 lines a day, and you'll have a lot. And so I will urge people to write, I kind of made up my own way, do it 3 lines a day, don't look back at any of the lines, and at the end of a month, go back and see your 90 lines and see if there are a few you would like to build upon and maybe turn into something a little longer. Or if you're, put little stars by the ones you're happy that you wrote down, because if you didn't write that down, you would have forgotten it. You just make up different things and urge them to do it. And invariably, these groups are looking like, I don't know, but 3 lines isn't that hard, I'll try it. And so many people come up, and say later, wow, those 3 lines gave me the memories I needed, broke me out of this or that. It's just tiny strategies that we need for ourselves. And you've always been the best for strategy. Like I remember you giving, maybe 40 years ago, giving everyone you encountered like these little notebooks to tuck in their pockets. Could you talk about those?
Well, it's a great remedy for a failing memory. I'm a writer because I can't remember things. And there's that moment when you overhear something and you just have a little jolt of pleasure in what that is. And sometimes, currently I have insomnia, and in the middle of the night, my subconscious delivers these phrases. And, I'm able to lie there and think about them and, well, what an offering. What is that? And then I know that in the morning when I get up, I'll have a chance to stay with that. That's an incredible enrichment, because let's face it, once the day starts, what's coming at you? All kinds of withering things. Even the good things are pretty crowded. Your chores, your errands, your phone calls, your to-do list. And so to get ahead of all that and have a few crumbs of thought is a pleasure in itself. I realized recently with the Stafford Challenge, the idea of writing every day, if the poem is the outcome, well, that's cool. But the experience of looking at a piece of paper and there's nothing there, and then there's something there. And there's something strange and often wonderful.
It's a materialization.
Yeah.
It's a tangible you can hold in your hand.
So Naomi,
it helps you think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hands-on thinking.
Hands-on thinking. And so many people, I think, imagine when they're growing up that you have to have this great thought before you write anything down. But no, you don't. You just have to have an observation or a word or a phrase or something overheard. And then that leads you to an interesting thought. But you have to have that faith in the practice, which I remember hearing your father say so many times. I'm not more talented than other people. I just found a method of inviting these things into being on the page. So a question I'd ask you, Kim, is also people keep talking about, but how do we have the luxury of writing or making anything in times of such trouble?
Well, I've told some of the people at the conference this story, that I was in a coffee shop one time, and there were these 2 type A surgeons, very hyped up, talking very fast. And one of them said to the other, the Dalai Lama was in town, and I had a chance to talk to him, and I asked him a question, and I said, Your Holiness, how long should I meditate each day? And the Dalai Lama said, half hour, good. And I said, but what if it's a really busy day? 2 hours. because he said, you'll need it. And what I find about a writing practice is if you add something that belongs to you to your day, everything else makes room. Everything else goes a little bit better. You're collected. You have regained your sovereignty as a human being, your buoyancy. Your parent says sometimes, Kim, you're more fun to be around when you've been writing. Which, yeah, I like to be fun to be around. So writing is a good practice. So Naomi,
you feel gravity. You feel like you're on the earth.
So
I'm really here.
Should we do the sanctuary challenge and say, how many people are going to write 3 lines tomorrow? Okay, I'm going to hold you to that. Let's do an experiment. Let's see if we feel better after we write those 3 lines. Let's say for a week. 7 days. See what
Why
happens.
so small? I would go with a month.
Let's go for a year.
A month. Go till July.
Okay.
Do it till July.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So, Naomi, how many schools do you visit in a typical year?
It's countless schools, but it has been the greatest joy of my life to work with kids everywhere. And I have never yet been to a place where poetry didn't live, where it hadn't preceded me, where there wasn't poetry ready to spring forth. And I asked Kim's permission to read a poem from a large 4th grade session in a school in a town called Oberursel outside Frankfurt, Germany. It was the American school. So we were having these hour-long sessions, but with full grades in the library, and I was having them write, and the teachers were very surprised by that. They said, it's really hard to get kids to write when there's this many people in here. And I said, yes, but I'm talking about writing. So how meaningful will it be if I only talk about writing and no one writes? It's not good. So after they wrote for 7 or 5 minutes only, we had a whole conversation, sharing of poems, ideas for 45 minutes, then quick writing, 5 to 7. I asked if there were any volunteers to read. I'd never met any of these kids before. Boy in the back raised his hand first. I said, you be first, you come up here. So, 4th grade. How old dirt can be. The word dirt had not been mentioned in the hour. I had been talking about pathways and the forest outside the school and the creek and just being outside in Germany for many days. And this was it. Soil is always there where you are, but sometimes it hides, like you when you were little and small. You always cried because the world was full of wonders and feelings. You tried not to cry, but it was impossible. All the new things that you saw, nice feelings going through our bodies, all the wonders that are happening all the time that have never been before and will never be again. Like the dirt that you see always. Be happy where you are. Well, I was crying, and I looked around, and all the teachers were crying, and the kids were all saying, my turn, my turn. And so they came up, and I said, Damien, I need to talk to you after, because I wanted him to let me make a copy. They still had a Xerox machine there. And so then he left, and he seemed pleased that I liked his poem enough. It was the only one I'd asked for a copy of. And the teachers said, his parents are coming in for a conference this afternoon. We were going to kick him out of the school. What should we do? And I said, he's a poet. Why were you going to kick him out of this school? And they said, because he never pays attention. And I said, no, he's paying a wider attention. He's looking at everything, everywhere, the feelings going through everyone's bodies, the wonderings of the past. Give him more creative assignments. Let him come to the library more. And they all started saying, maybe we could. Maybe we could. It was a very ambition-driven school. It was an excellence-driven, measuring school. Everything was being measured. And I guess that's why they invited me, but... Anyway, I hope he stayed in school, and I hope they gave him better assignments.
The reason that story has hope is the teachers cried.
They all cried. The librarian cried.
Yeah, they got it.
Yeah, they got it.
So I have a companion story that I apologize. I've told some of you this story, but I cherish it. So some years ago, I was giving a reading in a library, and there was a very distinguished white-haired woman in the back row. There was just sort of a glow. So after the reading, I went up to her and said, help me, I feel like we've met. Help me remember. She said, well, Kim, I was your 5th grade teacher. I am Mrs. Genevieve Smith. And after hearing your poetry, I need to tell you something. When we had the parent-teacher conference, I told your parents, Kim is a dreamer. He's always just staring out the window. And my father said to Mrs. Smith, make him pay attention. And she said, no.
I love her.
She said, when he's ready, he will.
Oh, beautiful teacher. I love it.
So I think another piece of optional homework before the 3 lines for several months is to write a poem for someone that you're grateful to. You know, it might be someone from long ago. Even if they're gone, write the poem of gratitude. Write a poem for them. And I want to give you a 4th grade poem.
Yes.
So, and again, some of you have heard this, but it's so great. Elizabeth Woody, that you mentioned, she was the Poet Laureate before me, and she said in her last reading as Poet Laureate, you know, the more I do poetry, the less it's about what the poem is, and more about who the poem serves. You know, so it's not the excellence of the poem or the literary quality of the poem, it's how it lands with a reader, maybe a particular reader. So I adopted this as my standard writing assignment. Think of someone in your life who needs a poem. And then either find one or write one for that person. So I went to the Queen of Peace School in Salem, which means peace, Salem. And I threw out this assignment to the class. You know, think of someone in your life and then write a poem for that person. So I don't know how it is for you, but in high school and certainly in college, when you say, would anyone like to share what they just wrote? But in 4th grade, ooh, 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 ooh.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I called on this little guy, and he said, okay, this is from my best friend, Max. There are 50 states. There are 192 countries. There are 7 oceans to cross. There are 7 continents. There are billions of stars. And I met you.
Oh. I love it.
Okay, I got to give you one more. One more. This is spring of 1978. You know, this is the thing about a poem. It can just live with you. The library. So I gave an assignment. When I look back at it, it's sort of a weird assignment, but I said to these 3rd graders, what if you woke up tomorrow and you were old? What would it be like? You know, and most of them wrote things about, I told them, have a box you put all your things in, and then you open it when you're old.
Yeah. Oh.
And so, they described, I opened my box, my first shoes, they're so cute, and so on. But this one student didn't understand the assignment. Vicki Lynn Smith was her name, and she wrote this. It's called I Was Old. God woke up and he heard a dinosaur. And he said to myself, how come he am in the old day? How come? And then he died for a little while, and he came out of my graveyard, and he loved to die young. And the end. And then everybody wanted to end their poem, and the end. Now that is a treasure in my life.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
I had this experience in the Stafford Challenge where, we're all milling around, having a great time, and I set down my backpack, which is my life. It's like a computer in it, all my, things I'm working on and everything. And it came back, it was gone. And I thought, oh, this can't be. Someone on this Lewis and Clark campus in the chapel annex took my backpack. And so I go marching down to campus safety to report a theft. The guy got out his little book and he's writing down, do you have a photograph of the pack? Well, of course not. Did you back up your computer? Well, of course not. And so then I went back and Brian texted me a photograph of my pack. But the reason I'm telling this story is, as I walked down there, I thought, I have everything I need with me. Poetry, I can make more. The world will keep giving me gifts. I'm okay. Now that's a treasure.
But then you found it.
Then I found it, so it's a double bonus. And the end. So Naomi, I want to ask you.
Are we going to close with a poem? Don't we?
Oh yeah. No, we have 8 o'clock, right? Yeah. Okay.
I thought we had to end right now.
No. So Naomi, you from your travels, visiting many communities, many countries, many cultures. What can a community do to lift itself with poetry? What can a city do?
Share it in any way you possibly can. In India, people gathering on the lawn outside the schools, after school, just people from the community. What's going on in there? Students reading to them, poets showing up to read. I was very touched by how there seemed to be this mingling of poetry, not just in the classroom, for everyone. In Ireland, they have poem menus on the trays in hospitals. And one year I got to be the curator. Pretty sure I put one of yours on somebody's tray and go over there and visit the hospitals. And in all the elevators in the Irish hospitals, they have poems. Because when do you need a poem more? Is when you're visiting someone in the hospital. You're desperate for something to calm you down. And just finding ways to bring it out, share it in community. Yeah. So I hope everybody looks at the We Are Not Numbers project from Gaza. It was started a while ago. It's still going on. You can find it online.
We Are Not
Numbers.
Mm-hmm.
It's just what it's called.
So during the pandemic, I wrote a poem for nurses, and I put it on Instagram, and then somebody sent me a photograph. It had been posted in the elevator at the hospital for people to read.
Beautiful.
In the packet, we had a workshop today, and in the packet that I gave the students was my page of secret publishing. And this is where you leave your poem in the Xerox machine at work. Without your name. Or you
put it on the neighbor's doorstep without your name.
Yeah. Put it by the electric meter so the person coming to read the meter will find,
Put it in the little library That's a great place to leave poems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had one, go to the Goodwill and put it into the pockets of all the coats in the Goodwill, so people buy them. What is this? Okay, so we're seeding poetry across the landscape.
Wherever you could leave it.
Yeah.
We have a project in San Antonio where poets go out and put it under windshield wipers on cars in parking lots. They're just poems they love that have helped them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Naomi, let's read a few more poems.
Well, I wanted to read one to your mother. Many people here, I'm sure, knew Dorothy Stafford, also one of the great, wonderful people of the world. And her late life motto, which I heard her say many times, was, "Why not?" When anyone would ask her do you want to do this? Go to the farmer's market, go here, go there, she'd say, "Why not?" She came to Texas 9 times after your father died, once with you, Barbara, to see the wildflowers. 9 times, 9 years in a row. Why not? For the birds. Why aren't you filling your feeders these days? My mother asks. The birds are disappointed. They keep landing on the feeder and flying away looking sad. And I thought about our lives, days crammed full of doings, so many messages. Do they feed us or make us fretful? Maybe the birds are messages too, but saying what? We watch them landing, ruffling succulent, soft brown, layered wings, wearing snazzy yellow beaks. Why not? And I haul out the sack of seeds. Dorothy has marked my whole life too. It's very big gift to have someone else's parents mark you so deeply. But probably because you are attentive poetry lovers here, that's happened to many people in the audience.
So one thing my dad said about our mom, Dorothy has a whim of iron. Which I think maybe is a good thing for a human being, certainly for a poet.
What's a whim?
A whim.
A whim?
Just like a little hint, just a little urge.
Yeah.
You know, what she wants, she's going to get. Okay, I have one about a bird for you. And this is a poem that Naomi chose for Poem a Day.
Yeah, Poem a Day.
Yeah, so it appeared online. So I get up early to write, and in the winter, in the dark, the birds start singing before there's any hint of light. And that's very cheering to me. So the way I write a poem for a person, this is for a bird singing before dawn. Some people presume to be hopeful when there is no evidence for hope, to be happy when there is no cause. Let me say now, I'm with them. In deep darkness on a cold twig in a dangerous world, one first little fluff lets out a peep, a warble, a song, and in a little while, behold. The first glimmer comes, then a glow filters through misty trees. Then the bold sun rises, then everyone starts bustling about. And that first crazy optimist, can we forgive her for thinking dawn by dawn, hey, I made that happen. And oh, life is so fine.
Oh, I love that. So beautiful. And Kim, you and I have discussed the other night, it was a great honor to be with Humanities, Oregon, down the street. And we had a question from the audience that was so touching. Someone was trying to write about her father, and he was such a big presence, such a force of love and history in her life that she was finding it hard to write about him. And a suggestion that came through the conversation was, well, don't let yourself be overwhelmed. Just write about things from tiny perspectives, tiny doors, tiny windows. Come at it from a modest angle. And I think your father was an expert of doing that always. In the poem, Stay Humble, fly low. So I wanted to read one more poem, if that's okay, just one.
Good.
So this is a book, Grace Notes, that I wrote for my mom. My mom had always told me, you can write about anything in the world, when she realized I was seriously writing as a child. Write about your dad, but don't write about me. Don't ever write about me. So, of course, I only wrote about her in my notebooks. I valued what she said. But I wrote a lot about her in my notebooks. And then right before she died, she said, are you going to do a book about me like you did about your father? And I said, yeah, good thing I was keeping notes. But I actually mostly didn't go to the notebooks. I just went to memory when someone dies and how you're swarming with things. And it was the most comforting experience to write Grace Notes, because even though all the things in the book weren't happy, they kept our conversation going. As the poet from Scotland, Alistair Reid, said, you keep a conversation going when you write about someone you loved. So this is very short. It's called Forgiveness Circle. And I should mention that both of my parents always used perfect grammar, which to me made this a really funny poem. Before my mother died, I wanted to try something I'd heard about. We sat out on the porch together. I said, I'll go first. Please forgive me for losing my patience sometimes, for pushing you when you didn't want to exercise or eat, for not always being as sweet as I should have been. I paused to let her take this in. Then I said, it's your turn. She said, I got nothing.
I think that's called a parting shot. Okay, well, I have a tiny little poem here. I got a call from Rob Wagner, the president of the Senate and the Oregon legislature. Could you come and read a poem at the first day of the session that might help us be nicer to each other? So I read this tiny poem.
Big order.
Meeting halfway. Behold this empty space between your certainty and mine. This arena of sunlight free of claim and counterclaim. This bright meadow where no one has shouted, bullied, or begged. Where butterflies are sovereign. Where birdsong is our legislation. Where you and I could walk and speak first of the children, then of our dreams, and only then of the work we will do together.
Oh. Thanks, Tim. Thank you, Oregon. Thank you for the red flowers.
Thank you so much to Kim and Naomi. What an evening. What an evening. So just a couple of things. I want to thank our signers. Thank you so much. Downstairs is Broadway Books has set up a store. So basically when you go out the door, go down the stairs, but just keep on going past the front door, keep on going down, and Kim and Naomi will be signing books down there. You can buy books, and they'll be signing. I want to say Happy Father's Day to all the fathers. I want to say Happy Solstice to everyone, which is also tomorrow, and just want to thank you all for being here. Take care. Bye, everyone.